There are currently 11 standard size maps in Valorant, with a new one expected sometime in the summer. Recently, I've been kind of forming the opinion that Valorant maps are just one step behind other FPS games. So today we're going to go through a few areas where Valorant's maps are in need of improvement. The first thing we're going to talk about is callouts. Callouts are a bit of a complicated subject because there are a lot of factors that determine callouts in a game, but at the end of the day, callouts are simply what the community agrees to call something. That being said, it's not just the community. Map makers have a ton of impact on the clarity of callouts. Most callouts are the product of a feature or an object in the game. To show this, we're going to do a fun little quiz. What's this called? What about this? And this? Of course, those are called flower box, yellow, and bench, because there's a flower box, the box is yellow, and there's a fucking bench. None of these callouts are actually on the map, yet players can easily understand and the community can easily collectively agree on what to call these places. The key to getting good callouts is having this distinct map design, having distinct objects that players can lash onto. Alright, now let's do a couple of counterexamples where Valorant just sucks. You died to an enemy here. What are you commenting to your team? What about here? And here? For the first one, granted, most people would say backside, but there is a substantial amount of people in ranked that would call that screen. And I'm not necessarily blaming them, but in a game where milliseconds matter, having screen and screens both in the same area is just not acceptable. For the second one, most people just say behind the box. I've heard this called sand a couple of times, and there are some people that call it cubby for some reason. Fun fact, I was looking up Reddit community maps while making this video, and there were community callout maps that called it Pocket, Ninja, and Pink. I don't know where the fuck Pink came from, but I need whatever the hell that guy was on. For the last one, most people know that this is called Nest, and the location on site is called Heaven/Tower, but I had a guy in my ranked lobby the other day that just kept calling this Heaven and confusing the hell out of everyone. So how could Riot go about having map design that promoted better callouts? Well, simply make the maps more diverse. I said it before, I'll probably say it again, but there are just too many of the same object to place all over the same map. Riot is notorious for using assets both within and between maps. For example, this green box exists over 100 times between 11 maps. 100 times! So like, imagine the box from earlier was instead two of these brick pallets stacked on top of each other. Maybe the community would have collectively come to call this area stone or bricks, and we all could have agreed on a better callout. And if you call this box and you're okay with calling this box, that's fine. This is just one example, and not everything can be called box or cubby. The whole point is we need more distinct callouts. For the map box on Split A site, yes, there's a map on it. If you didn't know, I didn't know either until I made this video because the map is so hard to see. For one, they could make the map bigger and maybe add the word map over it so people could call this area map, but I feel like map is a bad callout that would be confusing, so maybe they could change the picture on it to be like a schedule and put the word schedule at the top so people could call it schedule. I don't know, just anything to prevent people from calling it screen, please. And while I don't really think nest is an issue, I think it was a one-off thing, they could simply add a bee nest or a wasp nest in the corner and have like an ambient buzzing noising when you're up in nest, like subconsciously gaslighting players into remembering that it's called nest. Like there's these simple things that Riot could do just to kind of drive home the callouts. What I might do if I was the CEO of Valorant Studios would be to form a new team called something like the Callout Committee or something, and get a few community managers and a few game designers and have them meet like 3 to 5 months after each new map releases. Their goal would be simply to identify areas with weak or no callouts, or callouts that don't match the map. There are so many things labeled tower on the map that the community calls heaven, and maybe this committee could suggest changing those names on the map, or adding in objects or changing objects just to make the callouts better, please. Alright, we're gonna move on from callouts. Sorry if that got a little ranty. I am very passionate about Valorant callouts. So the next thing we're gonna talk about is geometric distinctness. So the next thing we're gonna talk about is geometric distinctness, which honestly sounds like something the nerd emoji would say. But basically what it boils down to is almost all of the walls of all of the Valorant maps follow one of 4 axes. They're almost all either horizontal, vertical, positive 45 degrees, or negative 45 degrees. This makes for what I think are really boring maps to look at. Almost all Valorant maps are a series of rectangular spaces connected by rectangular corridors. And I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing, it just feels kind of uninspired in a way. My favorite map from my CS days was Cobblestone, and if you look at it, it looks real. Like there's so many weird edges and corners, and in Valorant it's all just like boxes and 90-degree angles. So now let's talk about individual maps. The two maps that have the most consensus in the community for being poorly designed are Breeze and Icebox. So let's talk about Breeze first. If you ask most people what's wrong with Breeze, they're going to give you an answer like, it has too many long angles. And a lot of people understand that they don't like long angles, but they might not understand why. So I did a quick test in the range where I shot the bot 100 times from distances of 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, 40 meters, 50 meters, and 60 meters. From 10 to 30 meters, all 100 shots hit. At 40 meters, only 98 shots hit. At 50, 93. And at 60, only 84. At a distance of 60 meters, 1 out of every 6 shots you take will just simply miss. This is due to first bullet inaccuracy, which simply means from these longer distances, your first bullet doesn't always hit. This test was done with a Vandal, by the way. Other guns have different first bullet inaccuracies. Not to mention, at these longer distances, you just have to be more precise. Playing on 1080p at 50 meters, the training bot's head was only 7 pixels wide, and at 60 meters, it was about 4.5 to 5. If you're Radiant, maybe you can hit these shots consistently, but most people in Ranked don't have a 4 pixel accuracy. So because of all of this, most players don't enjoy fighting above 30 to 40 meters. And on Breeze, all of the major angles are above this. Mid is about 45 meters, Halls is about 50 meters, window to backside B is over 60 meters, and on A, all of the common angles are between 30 and 50 meters. It is really hard to find mid and short range gunfights on Breeze. Icebox shares this problem with Breeze, but not to the extent that the community thinks it does. On Icebox, it's much easier to get smokes to reduce the angles down, and there's a lot more options for taking closer fights if you want to. When I was talking to my friend about making this video, he said one of his biggest pet peeves with Icebox is there are so many high lows that it feels like you're always taking a 50-50 when you peek. This can be heavily mitigated at least with good smokes, but hoping for good smokes in Ranked if you're not playing them yourselves is like trying to win the lottery. Back when Icebox first came out, it was commonly referred to as both execute and retake simulator, which I find incredibly funny. But the thing is, it's funny because it's true in a way. The vast majority of rounds on Icebox are either a hard A hit or a hard B hit, maybe sending someone to lurk mid. Riot did change mid, adding the window and getting rid of the second alley in orange, and it seems like that did help a lot. And since it re-entered the pool like 2 days ago, a lot of us are going to get a second look and maybe reevaluate our opinions on Icebox. I spent like 10 hours trying to come up with a grading system to grade the maps on that would give consistent results, like objectively, right? But the issue is map design is inherently pretty subjective because it's based on what the community wants. Like, I would argue that Abyss has a lot of the same problems that Icebox does, but I know people that love Icebox and hate Abyss and love Abyss and hate Icebox. I think in the end, it all just really boils down to playstyle diversity. You gotta give players options, man. So what's your favorite and least favorite Valorant map and why? Let me know down in the comments. And until next time, stay Valorant.